For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
So, do you know at this particular Dunkin' Donuts, that guy behind the counter does it all?
What do you mean all?
Like he does it all. He plans the menu. He makes all the donuts. He makes all the coffee. Then he like distributes it all. He does all of the presentation, and then he also works the tiller.
When you say plan the menu, does he have like a chef special?
Yeah. The chef special is a the non-trademarked croissant donut.
Ooh, excellent.
Not a cronut. Oh,
Craig, is that Sean? You just saw him at Adepticon. Hey,
Sean. Speaking of a guy who does it all.
Yeah. Wow. Nice segue. Wow, that was pretty impressive.
You see how I did that there?
It was very impressive.
That was clever. I was in there believing it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. You're just like, oh my God, how could this possibly be?
Yeah. I was like, that explains why this coffee is so awful.
Oh wow! See,
wow! That with the parallels we're trying to draw.
Shoot!
Not be where you want to go.
Right. So Sean, what is your favorite? What do you normally when you go to Dunkin' Donuts? And I'm not saying you should do it often, but when you do wander to Dunkin' Donuts, what do you tend to enjoy? Is it a beverage? Is it a pastry? Is it one of those sandwich things? What do you go for?
I'm gonna have to do some role playing here because I don't think in my whole life I've ever been in a Dunkin' Donuts.
What?
Oh wow!
I am trying
not to be judgmental.
It's not as prevalent out here. In the West.
Where if you were to go to a donut shop,
that I would eat donuts.
Yeah,
and I would definitely have coffee.
Okay.
I really want coffee.
Thank you for committing. I really appreciate that.
I would eat donuts and have coffee. There you go.
What you maybe, since you've never been to a Dunkin' Donuts before, quite possible you're lacking the inspiration to improv correctly.
Right. Now wait.
Look at that. No. I want credit for that. That's my second ridiculously professional segue of the night.
Look, I'm not even going to allow that segue to occur. Sean,
please.
If you were to go to a donut shop in your neighborhood.
Oh, you are not letting the donut.
What donut shop? I can't believe.
At the cost of my segue.
I can't believe that you've never been to a donut shop. I just refuse to acknowledge that.
Oh, no. Shoot.
See?
Is it? I'm so uncool.
It's not about being cool, man. How do you live a life and never walk into a pastry shop?
Plenty of uncool people have had a donut in their lives.
Right. I feel like that's a thing. Wow, we'll have to come back to this. This is so we've already had a discovery, right? Sean does not eat pastries,
right?
Of any kind, Sean.
But Russ, when is he going to have time to eat pastry? He does it all, as we've already established.
You have worked really hard on the segue, Craig. So we should ask.
That segue I already gave up on. I'm trying to work it back around to the inspiration segue.
All right.
So let the donut thing go, man. The guy is starting to feel put upon.
I'm just saying it's hard for me to. Anyway, so Sean, we're going to talk to you in the main show here soon. Craig did a much better segue, but I'm stomping all over it again. So we're very soon.
Straight ahead, Russ. You do you.
A consummate professional.
I don't know what we're doing.
Do like you, and I'm gonna do like me.
So, what are you? You do everything in your miniature game. We're going to talk more about that in the main show here from sculpting to artwork,
rules writing,
rules fiction, the whole bit. But clearly, do you consider yourself an artist first and foremost? Is that your first love?
Yeah, definitely. And, as an artist, I've been like fiercely independent. Like I work on making stuff happen. So it came very naturally to me to do everything because it was a matter of creating what I love. And if that meant learning sculpture and illustration and self-publishing, like it didn't seem like I had to choose to do that. It just,
far out of the box.
To me, that was like the natural progression. Like, oh, well, if you want to do something, you do it.
That's cool. Awesome. So, I want to talk to you more about that in the main show. We're definitely going to dig into that. But I'm curious about today is really like, what inspires you? So when you were a young lad, let's say you were starting to draw something.
You were a young warthog. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Very nice. So when you first started drawing,
I get it. I show up and Mark leaves. That's fine.
Yeah, Mark's out. He's like, dude, Craig's here. So what got you into drawing? And what kind of art inspires you to draw? And is there a style that got into? How did you sort of fire up your imagination? What got you going?
Yeah. So I have an older brother who's 9 years older than me.
Ooh.
And so that dynamic means that anything that he liked or thought was cool to me was just like absolutely the coolest thing possible. So he was into D&D and he was into comics. And so like, I just really wanted to impress him so bad when I was a kid that I just threw myself fully into trying to be as good at drawing as I could be.
So did you start drawing the characters and everything in the parties he was in, or what? How did that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I ever was able to get that close to him.
Yeah.
To even learn about his D&D characters. But at the time, when I was, if he's 9 years older than me, when I was 5,
right. Sure,
he was playing D&D, right? So, but yeah, I think that was the biggest thing starting off. So like getting into comics and then also playing a lot of video games, but then transitioning into playing Warhammer then when I was a little bit older. Definitely those things were a really big influence on me. So looking through Warhammer rule books and seeing all the awesome art by, these legends now. So
very cool. So it was really going through so it was a lot of the Games Workshop, the early art and Games Workshop stuff. Like what
Games Workshop and then also Rifts. I played a lot of Rifts.
Oh yeah. Are you a big like John Blanche fan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Blanche. And then also like Karl Kopinski.
Yep.
Yeah. Those guys for sure. And I think one thing I really loved about source books as inspiration is they are like story adjacent. Like the artwork is hinting towards this world that exists and is described in the source book, which to me is so much more like really inspiring and exciting because my imagination's so active. I don't need people to tell me every detail because if you kind of set up a setting for me, then my imagination takes over and I really enjoy that stuff.
Cool. So you almost like look for an art style to start putting your own drawings into. Is that the right way to say it?
Like when I was younger? Or?
Yeah. Or anytime.
Yeah, I don't know. I think right now my art style is just how I draw. It's grown from the influences I had when I was.
It's now you.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know, like when I'm really inspired by stuff and enjoying stuff, the inspiration really is just triggering my own imagination at that point. Like, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Then what do you do? Like, is there current artwork you look to today? Do you that you kind of watch for that kind of get you excited to draw, or do you, like your style's your style now, right?
Yeah.
But is there certain artwork you look for? Go, wow, that's a really interesting, world that guy's envisioning, or style, the way he drew the lighting in that particular scene, or whatever. Like, does that?
Yeah.
What do you look at walking around? Because I when I walk around like the art section at like Gen Con or something, I'm just looking at like I have no frame of reference because I'm not an artist, so I just look at things. Oh, that's pretty. That's the level of my depth right there.
Cool.
Right.
I find at this point, I really like finding stuff that is unexpected and where artists are doing things that are different than what I would do. But then also like within the same realm of context. So especially sword and sorcery stuff. Mm-hmm. With Relicblade, I've got to work with a couple of guest artists that I've reached out to just through like Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I think those guys are awesome because they're doing like weird outsider art, like strange styles and stuff, but really still within the sword and sorcery genre. And that stuff gets me really excited. I just finished reading volume 2 of Headlopper. I don't know if you've read that comic at all.
I have not.
So it's by a guy named Andrew McLean. Yeah. And it's sword and sorcery. It's like, if you can imagine Conan the Barbarian with kind of more like lighthearted, but like he's got a simple, like clean style that's very animated, but then there's also really like clear, badass, traditional sword and sorcery content. It's just wonderful and clever and funny throughout.
So do you find yourself reading a lot of comics because the art is something you enjoy kind of absorbing and I don't know, learning? Is learning from it the right word, or just being inspired by it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest point on inspiration would go back to, I don't know if you've watched the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
I have not, but I'm making a list here. You give me some good things to watch.
Yeah, so it's funny. This one is about like the best sushi chef in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's this old guy, should be retired, but loves his work and pours himself into his work. But at one point in that documentary, he says that in order to make good food, you have to eat good food.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonated with me, that a reminder that, you'll spend a lot of time making your own stuff, but you need to be consuming good stuff too. And, the best chef in the world needs to be eating food
right.
to remember like what he's doing and why he's doing
and not eating his own food, right? Isn't part of the
not necessarily just, you don't just eat your own food. Like, although I heard that Prince only listens to his own music. So, or, he used to. Rest in peace, Prince.
Right. Formerly known as Prince.
So anyways, like I really try to consume as much as I can, even though I'm busy all the time. And so, I get comics from artists that I really like. I play games, and then also like music is a big influence on my work also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is funny, but like, I guess it comes back to, because I haven't analyzed this very much, but it comes back to what I was saying before about how it's not the thing, it's not the adventure that I want you to show me. I want you to show me everything that's around the adventure.
Oh, yeah.
That gives a context for my imagination to fill the blanks.
Cool.
And so, like, certain kinds of music give me a chance to be put in a tone and setting and let my imagination really pick up from there. So, like, I've got one of the expansions for Relicblade is the Bone and Darkness set.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got like, skeletons and stuff. And that was really inspired by a musician called Lorn, Lorn,
Mm-hmm.
and his album Ask the Dust. And it's almost no lyrics. It's just like this really high reverb, like dark electronica, like grim doom electronica. And so that stuff, he gave me a setting with the music, and that was enough to like really trigger my inspiration and get me going. So
I love that. That's awesome. So Craig, does that resonate with you as a writer? How much of your inspiration is parallel to so much?
You guys just dropped out audio wise on me.
Oh no, we lost Craig.
So I'm back. Am I?
Oh, there you are.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure. I was about to ask a question, and then you can ask me the question back, I guess.
Right.
But my first question, Sean, was when you were talking about consuming so much art yourself. I know I've talked to a lot of different writers about, their inspiration and stuff, and I read a lot. I think I'm in your camp as far as looking for inspiration there. But I have encountered some writers who avoid reading other work because they're afraid that their work might become derivative. Do you ever fear that? I would imagine that it might even be more of a danger in a visual medium where the cues might be easier to pick up than in writing, where you're talking more along the lines of maybe themes and things like that. But are you ever concerned about keeping your vision kind of like, your vision when when you're looking outside for inspiration at the same time? And how do you sort of keep your voice like, I don't know, individual among all the art that we like, that all of us see out there every day, never mind if you're like going out and looking for it?
Yeah, I think that's a super. This is a great conversation. I'm excited about this. I am. I firmly believe that you have to eat good food to make good food.
Oh.
I believe also that, especially, I'm working in the fantasy genre, and so I think that it's a dialogue between me and other creators. And so while my work is not derivative, and I do have a strong style and sense and of the world of Relicblade, and I'm very comfortable growing within that world. My confidence and maturity as an artist definitely plays into being able to be part of the conversation about contemporary sword and sorcery without feeling like I'm going to be copying anyone. Like, I don't feel, for one thing, I'm checked out and I don't feel pressured to just make stuff based on what people will like. I'm going to be making stuff really what I envision for the game and what I like and want to make. So, I mean, for example, I made gnomes on the most recent expansion.
I love the gnomes. I own that expansion. It's awesome.
I believe.
Yeah, and a lot of people hate gnomes.
Well, they shouldn't.
So
gnomes are people too, Sean.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to make stuff that's just what people like, and so I'm not worried about copying. But it's also an important point to make that I don't think that my work is the best. There are artists out there that are better than me. And if I'm not looking at what they're doing and analyzing what's so much better about their stuff, then I'm not moving forward and challenging myself. And so, I mean, I don't have enough pride in my own vision to think that it can't be improved by at least trying to match or meet the level of expertise other people are putting into their work. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's a quality thing that I'm looking for. Like, I want to at least be pushing myself to be the highest quality that I can.
That's an awesome response, Sean, because it segues into another thing that I love talking about when I'm talking to creative people, which is I feel that I am not anywhere near the best writer in the world. I know I'm not, but I also have, I'm very very self-conscious about my writing. And my experience is that many, many creative people are the same way. And my theory is that we, in our own heads, know what we mean to create. And thus, every time we create something, we're judging it based on the perfection we saw in our head. And of course, it's never going to quite match that. And so other people are seeing what we created isolated and without anything coming ahead of it. So they're judging it from one direction, whereas we're looking at it from another. And I think I often have a very hard time distancing myself from looking inside the forest, so to speak, or from inside the forest, so to speak. So you find yourself often having to sort of step back and remind yourself that if you weren't good, you wouldn't be where you were, you know? So obviously there's a validity to your efforts, and obviously there's talent, and obviously you're good at what you're doing. But as you just said, like, I'm not the best, and so I always have to look and make sure that I'm, getting not only inspiration, but something I can match my efforts and my outcomes to. Do you sometimes find yourself having to sort of almost consciously bolster your self-confidence in that regard?
I think I've always been the type of artist that, and I think it's been to my benefit, even though it sounds weird to say out loud, is that I really like my own work.
Well, that's good.
Like I have a healthy level of criticism for it, and I want it to be better. But I'm always, when I finish a piece, I don't look at it like, oh man, I need to go back and fix it. I tend to think, oh, I'll do better next time. But then I also get a sense of, like, when I finish something, I sit and look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's just my taste. That's just the type of thing I like. And like, I think that's a big rewarding thing. And it comes back to not being derivative. It's like, I'm making stuff so specifically to what I like.
Right.
That if if I made something, if I designed a character because I thought someone else would like it, it would take that passion out. It would take that zeal out. And I'd be like, well, it's not what I like, but maybe someone else will like it. Like, I just don't work that way. I don't design that way. And so when I finish an illustration, as long as it's executed rightly, then I'll look at it and be like, oh yeah, sweet. That's so cool. And then move on, you know? And so I don't know. I'm critical and work hard, but I also am comfortable accepting imperfection in my own work. And so that, I think
that makes you healthy.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I remember in college having a teacher talk to or say like, oh, perfectionism really serves an artist. And I was like, well, that's not me. Oh shoot, I don't have what it takes to be an artist. But then I found that my output was so much higher. Like I could produce so much more and finish so much more because I wasn't like freaking out about every little fine detail. And then, I mean, for artists today, so many of us can spend a ton of time on an image and like you get 3 seconds of someone looking at it, you know?
There's a saying
if someone's going to flash by and like scroll past an illustration I did,
right.
Hopefully they don't see like blaring issues with perspective or with anatomy or something. But you know, if there's like a line that doesn't connect or finish or a color that's a little bit weird, like, oh, they'll be fine. I'm fine. I like it.
There's a saying in software development, and I was wondering if it applied. I never really thought of it as applying to art or creatively, although, you know, obviously software development is creative, but the saying is great is the enemy of good.
Oh, yes.
And the idea is that if you're trying to make everything perfect, you never get anything done. And good is often good enough.
That I would think that goes for every sort.
Yep, that's a good point.
Yeah, and there's also the saying that like finished has a quality all its own.
Yes,
but,
right.
You know, something that's actually done has a really
something complete is more valuable than the perfection that's yet to be. Right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I love to look back at my work and be like, look at all I've finished so much. Yeah. Whereas I could easily just still be trying to go over making stuff perfect if I were that.
Right. I also think I think you'll learn more by getting it out there, right? Because you get the feedback and you know what you should polish more because people notice it, and you know what you can maybe focus less on because people don't catch it. To your point, like maybe they're much more focused on colors than lines ending perfectly, you know, and so you know to really nail the colors and worry less about the, you know, where the lines stop, you know, or whatever. That's a terrible example because I'm not an artist, but
but I think people know what you mean.
Yeah. That's cool. I also liked your point about to make good food, you must eat good food. I remember when Craig and I first talked about the podcast, which I don't really think of as a creative endeavor, but obviously it is a creative endeavor, but I don't really think of it that way much. But I used to listen to, and I still do, but I really, in the very beginning, before we even started, I listened to tons of podcasts. Like now I listen to podcasts still, but I block out time for audiobooks. And so my podcast listening is much slower than it used to be. But when we were getting ready to launch the show, I forced myself to listen to podcasts pretty much every moment I wasn't doing something else.
Yeah.
And the idea was to kind of like just understand what was out there, what I liked and what I didn't like. And to your point, not to copy it. I didn't want to copy it. I just wanted to kind of get a sense of what kinds of things work and what kinds of things don't. And, you know, and kind of be inspired by some things, and then also not to do the same thing as someone else. It was almost more like, well, if that's been done a million times, I don't want to be that guy again.
Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. I think that's really important. Another thing that really impressed upon me when I was younger was how you guys played Halo 1, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when that game came out, and it might be a matter of opinion, but I think it's well accepted that was pretty much the best first-person shooter at the time.
Oh yeah, it was certainly certainly the top 5 ever made. You know,
yeah, because when Halo 1 came out, it was competing against on console like GoldenEye. I don't know,
Yeah, it was really the first console shooter. I mean, GoldenEye is one people talk about, but I would say Halo was the first really sort of mass appeal shooter that worked on a console. Before that, I remember thinking everybody's like, well, you really good shooters are all on PCs, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And one thing that struck me is I played a ton of first person shooters on Xbox and from that generation of games.
Right.
And they all had a few really cool elements, but were mostly trash. And Halo wasn't breaking new ground. It was a space marine on a craft world and that world was made in a simple way. It was like there were rocks and trees. And so there wasn't anything like super in depth about it. Oh, and like the building structures were just like polygonal, like
right.
But what was so amazing about it is they took the very best elements from other games and didn't port any of the crappy stuff.
Right.
And so I think that struck me as a game designer, like, or as a creator, you can take stuff that's really good and do that kind of stuff, and it will just help. I mean, like, because what made Halo great was that it was all the best stuff in one place.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of sticks with me with Relicblade is like, according to my taste, like, what do I love about role-playing games? Or what do I love about wargaming? What do I love about miniatures? And I try and make sure that I put just my favorite parts into it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's going to be super original or perfect in any way, but it's according to my taste,
Right.
So it's a meal that I made.
Again, speaks to your health, which is starting to drive me a little crazy. Like, I feel like I'm either on the edge of an epiphany, Sean, or I'm going to resent you for the rest of my life. I don't know exactly what direction I'm going to go yet.
No, we'll see.
Well, there you have it. We'll find out. Well, Sean, it's been great catching up with you here at Dunkin' Donuts. They're giving us kind of the evil eye here to kick us out here, but
oh gosh.
But thank you for joining us, and we'll
evil eye because they heard him talking about donuts.
Well, they heard him talking about not eating donuts.
Right.
Like, dude, if you're going to sit in here, buy something. It's pretty much. So Sean, thanks again. We'll catch up with you in the main show here in about a week.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Sean.
At this donut establishment.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.